today on Beat Nurse Burnout, it's going to look a little different. We're actually not going to talk about nursing specifically at all, but I am super excited for this episode. It is an episode that's in participation with the 4th edition of Podcasthon. This is the world's largest podcast charity initiative, bringing together podcasters globally to raise awareness for the important causes on their hearts without any money involved. It's all about just uniting voices to make an impact and increase awareness for these amazing nonprofits and charities. For 1 week, more than thousands and thousands of podcasters will highlight a charity of their choice, and I am honored to support the Project Foundation for the 2nd year in a row. Patrice Perrone is the founder and director of the Project Foundation. She's an entrepreneur, creative, activist, and thought leader, and over the years, she has started several businesses and has served in aspects of Christian ministry. She's devoted her life to helping others find freedom and live in their God-given purpose. Her mission is to equip adults to prevent exploitation. And today we specifically talk about protecting our children in a digital world, understanding online trafficking, and equipping parents and communities with actionable tools. So as you see, this is not about nursing, but it is going to be relative to you as a human being. We all need to know this information. We all need to know how to protect the children in our lives from this exploitation and these crimes that are happening online. With that being said, you may want to guard the little ears around you while listening to this episode. We may use some words that you do not want your little ears to hear. So keep that in mind as you press play on this amazing conversation. Let's dive in. If you're done running on empty, surviving shift to shift, and feeling life fatigue, then you're in the right place. Hi, I'm Shan Wright, registered nurse, holistic life coach, and mom of 4 who found her way through burnout and anxiety to peace and purpose with faith-based practices and God's design for whole person wellness. Here, I help nurses like you recover from burnout, regulate your nervous system, reconnect with God, and discover your identity beyond the badge. Are you ready to start caring for you the way you care for everyone else? I am. Go reheat that coffee again, and let's beat burnout together. Today, we're going to talk about protecting our children, whether they're your own biological children or children that you love and care for that are in your life from friends or family and whatever. So I am joined by Patrice Perrone from the Project Foundation, and we're going to have a conversation that every parent, every uncle, teacher, nurse, coach, anyone needs to hear. This is for any adult, okay? Because here's the truth. Sex trafficking isn't just something that happens somewhere else to someone else's kids. It's actually happening everywhere right now, right here, through the very devices that we use all the time and that we give to our children. So gaming, their phones, computers, iPads. And in January, it happened to a 17-year-old named Haley Busby right here in our local community in Fishers, Indiana. She was a beautiful young girl whose life was stolen through gaming connections that led to trafficking and then the loss of her life. So today we're going to talk about what parents need to know, the warning signs to look for, and how we can protect our kids in this digital world from predators. Might not be something you're used to listening to, but it is worth the discomfort to learn the truth. So, Patrice, thank you so much for being here and the work that you do.
Thank you, Shannon. It's always an honor to do a podcast with you, and I'm so grateful to you. Not only I know Shannon well, and you're an awesome parent, and I really know that your heartbeat is to raise your children properly with the right tools, and extending this particular podcast to other parents, I think is, not only dear to my heart, but hopefully at the end of this isn't to bring fear, but to bring awareness and some tools on what we can really do in a world that this is happening faster, more furious. It's even difficult sometimes for me to talk about because there's so much information, and it changes, it grows, right? Because it hasn't since COVID. This has exasperated actually since 2019. Just even the apps that kids are on, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, definitely. We went a lot more digital in 2020. So before we dive in, you actually were on the podcast last year at this time, also with the Podcasthon, and you shared your story, but we want to hear it again because we want to know what the Project Foundation is all about, what is your mission, and what really led you to do this work.
Yes, our mission at the Project Foundation is to educate, empower, to eradicate, to end sex trafficking. My heartbeat is prevention. And actually, when I started this over a decade ago, there's so many layers. We've worked with survivors. We have built task force. We've gone overseas. So we have projects that we work with, but the one that's near and dear to my heart and is youth and what's happening to our children. There is a war over our children, and it's really this year. It's always been in me, but you get busy, we get distracted, and there's so many needs that you're like, which one first? But I really, in my heart, I'm so thankful for this podcast, and hopefully this will open up some other dialogues, and we can go in and educate some parents, maybe even in your community or communities. They can reach out to me. Yeah, I've started it based really because God put it on my heart. My background's in the beauty industry, and I've done several things, open businesses, so on and so forth. But my heart is ministry. I've been in several different kinds of ministry, youth, women's ministry, inner healing and deliverance. And, every time and these were people in the church have come up to me, and I'm hearing their stories, and I'm like, wow, what is happening? And years ago, I had what was happening, and I felt like something really with sex trafficking, with exploitation. I think it's something very near to God's heart to protect our children. And I couldn't shake it, to be honest with you. And I really didn't know what to do about it except just start working with other organizations. Collaboration is a key to all of our success. So that still applies. And I can't shake it because it's a call. And we're all called to it, not just me. So I'm being a clarion call to you today as parents. You don't have to do what I'm doing, but we start right in our homes.
Yeah. So that's a big calling to eradicate and then prevent sex trafficking and the exploitation of young women and children. And that's a heavy calling. But like, you're right, it starts in our home. From the beauty industry, and obviously you said you were in a lot of ministry work as well. But what was there an instance that really opened your eyes to the issue and then it became your life's work?
Yes. My story was, I'm going to try to condense it for us. Years ago, when I was working with another ministry, I felt compelled to go and do outreach. One of my mentees had asked me to come with her. It was an outreach into the sex clubs. They were doing outreach. And so I went. It was in Los Angeles, and it opened my eyes to, wow, just what was happening. But I was seeing these young women when we'd go in. They were young women just putting themselves out there. And then the more I got involved with that ministry, I started to hear the backside of those stories in conjunction with, at the same time. That's why I feel like God kept like pushing this on me. I was like, I didn't come out of that world. I was naive to that world. And I realized, even in ministering, just a little note off to the side, that a lot of people that come out of those, I'll say, the sex trade, they end up, when God gets a hold of them, they start ministries based on their past. But there's something very unique about, if you've not come out of that past and you minister to them, there's a different, and I say they need both. They need people that love them, not because we totally get what they've gone through, but because we're either mothers or fathers, have a spirit of mothering or just friendship and acceptance. And that's in the body of Christ. So with that, I also, at the same time with hair, this was crazy. I've done a lot of film work, makeup, hair, and different passion projects for people. And I had met a woman on set, and she had a job to work on a porn set for makeup. She was the makeup artist, not the talent, if you will. So So she asked me to go with her, and I was like, absolutely not. I can't do that. And I remember telling her I can't. And she was like, oh, Patrice, please come. And she's like, you're not going to see anything. You're just doing their hair. You're just coming with me. And as much as I was saying no, I said, I can't. I'm in ministry. I can't. A leader in youth ministry. What would that, all the things, even though I understand God calls us in places and spaces of darkness, and that's not for everybody. I know that, but it was for me to go. And I heard the Lord really kind of speak that to me. If you don't go, who would I send? That changed my life, honestly, because I did go. I had some intercessors praying for me. I was like, okay. We had a little term. It was called, I'm in the gutter. And that's all they needed to know. I'm in the gutter. Pray for me, whether I was out on an outreach or doing street ministry on the homeless and prostitution, whatever it was, that was I'm in the gutter. They knew what to pray. So I had intercessors. I went in all honesty, what I saw was interesting. A lot of young girls just sharing their heart, just as if they would in my chair at the salon. It opened up a lot of things for me. But there was this one particular girl, and she had alopecia. I'll never forget it. She wasn't what we would say. I mean, she wasn't what I thought someone on set should look like. She was very different than what I thought in my mind. She had alopecia. She was so stressed out. She had a 2-year-old, and her husband came to LA. She started sharing with me, but I did have an opportunity after the fact to have her come into my salon, minister to her, and heard the backside of the story. And just to give you a quick, she was brought up in the church. Her husband was a PK, pastor's son. She got pregnant. They ended up moving to LA. He was a musician, so he was trying to get some gigs. It was very difficult, as it is for a lot of artists. So they needed money, and he saw, this sounds so crazy to me, but it's crazy. He saw an ad for $500, and they needed a couple for a porn set. And that's how he started in the porn industry. And she started in the porn industry. And his mind was, well, we are married. We're not doing anything. But it only just opened up there. So when I heard her story, and I thought, oh, my Lord, thank God I was able to minister to her. I actually eventually met him. But that kind of started like, wow, what is happening to our children in the church? And that's nothing new. There's nothing new under the sun. But as parents, how can we do better if we know better, right? So
Yeah. So that brings me to like the fact that we hear sex trafficking and we're like, gosh, that's like, in these third world countries where people kidnap girls off the street and they put them in this van and then that's it. And it's like, actually, that's not what it looks like these days and a lot of times. And so in our modern days, there's a different kind of trafficking going on. And like Sweet Haley, it was through a gaming. And so she wasn't grabbed off the street, but she was having what she thought a real connection with someone online. And then it led one thing to the other, a type of grooming. So when gaming comes in, it is a whole new ball game. And can you explain a little bit more about how predators are using gaming platforms to access our kids?
it's a whole new world for real. And it's very, that's why parents, leaders need to really know and then learn what can we do and what can we do better and how do we communicate to our children. And some of them are teenagers and through this. But I just want to give you a few stats to kind of just let you kind of marinate on them a little bit. That I was just in a class because we continually get education because it's changing. And we work with law enforcement in our organization and different NGOs and therapists, et cetera. So with that, I was on this class and the woman did a phenomenal job. And it really touched me. And so I definitely will have that on our YouTube station coming up. It's being edited right now. So I would definitely recommend parents listen to her because she was amazing. Just to kind of give you some thoughts on what's happening with cyber since 2019, just to give you a little bit of an idea. This is a daunting statistic, and she started out here. 2019, it was in South Carolina. there were 4,900 cyber tips. So, and I don't know if everyone knows what cyber tips are, but they're basically each platform is required to report tips to law enforcement. So there was 4,900. In 2025, there was 52,000 cyber tips. So the increase on that is just daunting to me. And it started during COVID. Every kindergarten teacher, every kindergarten to college went home with a device. And
Mm-hmm.
at that point, I don't think we were really prepared for what took place with devices, because what it did after a while, there's some good things to it, but there's also, we weren't prepared. We weren't
Mm-hmm.
prepared as teachers, as communities and we're also in our own survival with COVID,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there's
Mm-hmm.
distractions. So what it did, I just feel like this is the beginning, one of the, I don't even want to say because it started before, no doubt, but a real uptick in what's happening in trafficking and how it happens differently based on what you just described, the guy in the white van or somebody stranger danger or so on and so forth. Now it's online and it's growing, and that's only in one state.
Yeah. Can I ask real quick what
Yeah,
a
yes.
tip is defined as?
Cyber tip, every platform. So let's say Roblox is one. Of course, they've
Okay.
had a lot of problems here lately, but they are required. Anything on the internet is required by law to report any kind of sexual behavior or anything that's concerning in regards to what's going through their platforms. They are required to
So
report it.
the owners of the platform or the app or the game are constantly looking through the conversations, and they have to report anything that looks like a cyber attack or a cyber anything that's of concern. They have to report that, and maybe they have a rule or a list of requirements, and anything that crosses those boundaries they have to report it. But then do they not have to suspend or block people from using the app or the game? They just have to report it and that's it?
Yeah, they have to report it, and then law enforcement can handle the situation. It
Okay.
opens research, if you will, how law enforcement handles it. What does that
Yeah.
mean? The manpower that's lacking, that like what one case, the hours that they have to put in regards to one case finding the perpetrator. So it can
Yeah.
go, and I don't want to have our conversation. I want to get back to some stats with our children and what we can do about it, because it can start here. We are not powerless. And it might
Mhm.
feel like some of these statistics, you feel powerless as a parent or a leader or, auntie, uncle, whatever, you might feel, but we're not. And my goal today is to open our mind to how bad it is, not in fear, but to empower us to really think about how we handle our children, devices, and what to do. So I'm going to kind of get into that a little. I'm going to give you a couple other stats. 1 in 4 minors had an online sexual interaction with an adult. Can you imagine? 1 in 4 had.
That's awful.
That's shocking, but that's where we are. 94% of teens see pornography by age 14, but the average first exposure is 8
Mhm.
years old. So how is that happening? It's online. And I
Mhm.
think back and, pornography's been for decades, like that's nothing new. What is different is it's not just a magazine that you're going through and your parents like with a cover on it. It's not that anymore. It's not just a flat photograph.
Mhm.
It has every sensory,
Yeah.
violent, the sounds, the actions. This is what our children are exposed to. And there's so many things that frightening, because how are these perpetrators getting into these games? Well, they're speaking to your children on these games and posing as a friend. If we think about it on like Facebook, everybody's a friend. I friended, but our
Mhm.
children, you and I, we would think we're friends because we have a relationship, because we're together, because I maybe have, we've gone out to dinner, we communicate. Their communication is online with somebody they don't even know. They'll wait. They'll wait for the right opportune time to make a move.
You're explaining my question really, but is like the grooming process. Like, how does it go from a predator being a random player on a game that you're like, you can be in this house playing a game and your friend down the street's playing a game. How do they get into that game together and they're playing and connecting to eventually having access over the child and then that leading to trafficking in some way? Like, how does that process work?
How does that work? There's a lot of ways it can work. We'll just say, and you mentioned Haley. I'm going to mention most likely, and this is very common, not the end result of what happened, and we want to stop that from happening. But Haley was online with a 39-year-old. She's 17. Correct me if I'm wrong on any information, because I know she came from your community. She was 17. She's online. She was online with this guy for roughly a year. Be a little bit more, could be a little bit less. I don't know exact facts, but what I've read, I'll just say that. So a year. So imagine that this person is playing games, and then with her, probably an innocent game, we're going to say Roblox. And I think it was Fortnite, if I'm not mistaken, how it started. And, she's probably in her bedroom, my guess. And very common for teenagers at 17, they're almost adults, right? So that 15, 16, 17-year-old group, they want their privacy, all the things. We can remember back when we were teenagers, how we felt. So now this guy is giving her attention, perhaps that she wasn't getting. And I'm not even going to say blame parents, but maybe from boys, she just needed attention like most 17-year-olds, boy or girl, do. And their hormones are raging or whatever. Now, this is very common. Teens are sharing images. 1 in 4 minors are sharing images of themselves online. They are. They're not telling their parents. It's kind of a thing. So we don't want to demonize our kids, but at the end of the day, this is what they're dealing with. They are desensitized. And I'm not saying all of our children are, because I know, each one of us raised them a little differently. But at the end of the day, if they have a phone, they have the white van.
Yeah.
They have that is the access. And we can put all the blocks and the guidelines, and somehow it gets through, whether they ask them to, whether they threaten, and this is common, they'll threaten the child. They'll,
well, I know for Haley's case, they were playing that one game, like a normal game. I don't know exactly. And then they switched over to another secret app. And I didn't even know there was things called secret apps where you can talk and it can't even be tracked.
There you go.
There's like, that is like the scariest thing. Cause I'm like, and then even these other apps that are, I don't know, my 7th grade group of girls at church tend to school me often on like, you don't know that app or that app. And I'm like, it's ever evolving, ever changing. And so, but right now I know there's this app and that's where they were communicating in a deeper way. Let's just say.
And that's what happens. So kind of backtracking a little and reiterating, think about it for a minute and imagine yourself as a teenager, vulnerable, even the younger kids. They're building a relationship with your child. They'll wait. That was a year. I mean, they'll wait. So they're building, they're talking, they're communicating.
Well, you also have to think about it. It's not just probably that child, your own child or whatever child. It's probably multiple. So they don't mind waiting because they have other things going on, other conversations happening.
Good point. They're not the only one.
Yeah, which is awful and sad.
This is their job. So then they get them offline, and there is the secret apps where they cannot be tracked. And that's what's going back to cyber tips. That's part of the how do we, the technology, and there's a lot of really great organizations, thank God, that are working on that, but we're just not, it's just happening at such a rate of speed that's why parents, what can parents do? I don't want to not be able to
Yeah.
give some tools and how we can
Yeah.
engage later on more tools. But so with Haley, obviously at one point, she's not telling her parents about any of this that I'm aware of. So she, of her own doing, got up, got out, met the guy. She
Mm-hmm.
feels like he was safe. Somehow she had security. She did not see danger. She did not. And I always think back, well, it's up to us as parents to protect our children. But if we're unaware of what we're protecting them from, what does that look like? We need to have the knowledge. And yes, they take them offline. It cannot be tracked. You won't know because our children want to please us. It's not necessarily rebellion, some of that too, but they want to please us. So they know I can't tell my parents that. It may bring them shame. I don't want them to be disappointed. But, we've all at some levels done things as teenagers. I'm sure every one of us, because we want our independence. And I'm referring to teenagers, but imagine this is happening at 8, 9, 10-year-olds. A lot of times the kids won't come back and tell the parent, depending. But the younger children actually will, like, mommy, this. There was one game, a woman was sharing a story, and she said one of the games, it seemed pretty innocent. She was communicating with her, I think it was her son, back and forth on the game. She had her eyes wide open, the mom. And then there was an advert that came in. And in order to go back to the game, they said, you need to undress this character.
Mm.
The child, the son, came in, thankfully said, mommy, because some might not, and just do it to get into their game, because now we have addictions to game. I mean, think about ourselves, our phones. I can be addicted to my phone. We're
Mm-hmm.
scrolling, so they're watching us. We're doing that. It has something that kind of draws us in, the latest. And even on I don't have any kind of things like that, but I'll see all kinds of images that I'm like, click, 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 click. So our children are being pre-groomed before, with that kind of stuff and what's going through our television, before they are really being groomed, because they're already desensitized. They don't see it as wrong sometimes. So back to this child, the mom, thank you for sharing. And she right away she took him off the game. That was one incident. Another story that child disclosed to the parents, which was great. There was someone asking their son to do something inappropriate. He came and mommy and showed her, and she just said, well, let's block that person off the game. That was it. And that person gets back on the game with another name.
Mm-hmm.
So, we can think a lot of times with a simple thing, let me just block that. Let me just do that. Sadly, the real root of the problem is we're not empowering our children. We're not communicating with our children. And sometimes, if, like, people ask, what's the best time to get my children a phone? I'm like, well, when you're ready to talk about them to pornography, because you're opening the door for that. So,
Mm-hmm.
if you're ready to talk to them about those things and let them know and what to do. And, as parents, sometimes we have a hard time talking about those things, but we need to.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. The other day I was on my weather app and I don't even know what it was, but I just know I saw a lot of skin. It was like on the bottom bar of my app. So, I have an iPhone, so it's not like small. And the app is like the weather's taking up, 90% of the screen. But there's a bottom bar that had ads running. And I just know I saw a lot of skin. And I like just X out of the app right away. But I'm like, that's awful. I'm on the weather. And it's not like my phone has ever I
Yeah.
have not had that before. That appalled me. I was like, I can't even let my child be on basic apps because each app has a age range, but you think a weather app would be for anyone. I don't know what the age range is on it, but there have been things that my daughter wanted to have. We got her a phone for dance purposes because she's traveling a lot for dance and outside of our control, like outside of our car and things. And so I'm like, okay, but she wanted, but something that was very, I think maybe Target. I don't know, something like that where it wasn't bad, but I had set her restrictions for like apps only like 9 years old. And so she's like, it won't let me get the app. And I'm like, oh, gosh, okay. But then I'm like thinking, gosh, I don't know what the weather app's age restriction is. It's probably really low because it's weather. Yet I saw something I didn't want to see or, wouldn't want my daughter to see. So it is crazy just having a phone in general. You don't even have to be on the apps, but you can be drawn into things.
Yeah. Even in this conversation, my mind's going a mile a minute because I'm like, oh, there's so much. Even with AI, AIs, people are putting photographs of their kids on there. I know we all can. We want to share. And maybe it's even our friend group, not public. Well, I'm going to just put something out there like, you never know. We'll just put that. I'm just going to say that what's behind some of our friends that we know.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, you might not want to put your children on a public platform, but with AI, that's a whole other deeper dive. They can take your photo of your child and put them in a pornography,
Yeah.
in porn, with your child's image. It might sound ridiculous, but this is where it's going. It's not stopping. Our children don't have the same, they're desensitized to some of this because this is the world they live in. This is the world we live in. I think of in Hosea 4:6, it says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. And, if we don't get the tools and the teaching and make it an important, higher priority of what to do, that's on us. And how do we equip our children? It is spiritual warfare. At the end of the day, this is a war over our children, over their
Mm-hmm.
lives, for our future. It's robbing them from
Yeah.
their destiny at the end of the day. How do we combat that? How do we conquer that? It sounds so daunting. And like you said, well, that's not going to happen to my child, but eventually your child is going to have friends. And
Mm-hmm.
there's an uptick, sadly, on, I'm going to call it kids on kids. It's not just adults, it's other children. I think about it like this. If you think, when we were kids, we would watch a movie. What movie did you like as a child? Anything particular
As
that
a teen or a little
as
one?
a little one?
As a
Little.
little one, probably Little Mermaid.
Okay, Little Mermaid. And so when you were done watching Little Mermaid, what did you do? Outside with your friends?
Well, in the pool, we would swim like a mermaid.
There you go. So we play like what we see. We
Yeah.
pretend our imaginations. Think about it. We all have movies and we went outside and we played with our friends, whatever it is, Little Mermaid.
Yeah.
What they're seeing now, what are they playing? The films, the movies, the access. They might see something online that just you may not know, but they might have, and they're going to act it out. That's normal. That's what we've all done. We have an imagination. So, how do we protect our children's imagination? And how do we talk to them when we don't even know sometimes what they were exposed to because they're not talking to us about it? And if they are, what do we do about it?
Yeah. Okay. So let's get into that about
Okay.
protection and prevention, things that we can do. Also, like signs that we can look out for. Like if we're thinking we're protecting, I actually heard this story where this mom had given her, I think it was a 12-year-old, a phone. And she's like, she's a good girl. She behaves herself. She gets good grades. We have a good relationship. And she was not allowed on social media. She got her phone for only texting and calling her parents and family. She was not allowed on social media. And her mom would check her phone every night. She gave it to her mom to keep it in the mom's. She thought she was doing all the things right. But then she found out, I forget how she exactly found out, but she found out that the daughter had downloaded social media apps on the phone, but then was deleting them every single night before she would give it to her mom. There's still ways that we can protect against that. But this mom thought she was doing everything that she could. Then kids are being kids. So anyway, what are some ways we can really
So
protect?
thank you for sharing that because that happens a lot. My main thing is it's great to have other parents and support that we have education. That's one thing we do. And there's other resources out there. Go in to a community, whether it's you might have 10 moms that show up and we will either do it on Zoom, a class, unlike what we're doing right now, because I'm just having a conversation to open that up, but an education on the do's and don'ts and hearing the stories and what can we do better with that because they happen. I think the main thing is always keeping an open dialogue, like check in with your kids. Obviously things we're already doing. It sounded like that mom was doing that and still things get through the cracks, but that doesn't mean we don't do anything. We continue to do what we know to do. Screen time, make sure it's monitored. What apps, check your phone, check the phones. And I think as a parent, I think we have an internal intuitiveness given by God to
Yeah.
protect our children. So if we have a little, don't discount it, go in and check because there might be that opportunity to go, you know what, they're doing something. Let me go check. And then what do we do with it if we're yelling at them afterwards? Like these are the conversations that I think parents need to, how do we handle that? Because as soon as you start, reprimanding them, they're going to shut you back out and
Yeah.
continue in a different way. Why? Because they're smarter than us. They know more than us in this regard because they're more aware of what's going on. We'll go into a school and they're like tracking with it. They know exactly what's going on. Parents don't know, sadly. But I think we can keep that open dialogue, let them know that they're safe, and let them know that if a perpetrator, this always stood out to me, a gentleman he teaches, he was a victim of trafficking. He's an adult now, and he was brutally raped as a kid by men and took his whole life down, a lot of situations. But something he says when he teaches, he says, as parents, if you can always let your child know if anyone threatens you ever, your job is not to protect us, we are to protect you. And I think what he says that because I think as in a child's mind, if someone's threatening your sibling, your family right away as a kid, you're like, oh, no, I can't be, and then they'll force you into something because you're afraid. And I think we need to communicate. Some people are bad people and they may do this. Never think that's our job. You don't do that. And, kind of talk to them about that, empower them,
Mm-hmm.
but keep
Yeah.
that open door. And I know with little ones, it can be easier because we have their ears, and then they get to a point, puberty starts to hit, it changes. And, they're doing what that age group does. And so if we keep that open dialogue, they know we're safe. It's common for them to be sharing nudes right now. So as a parent, I think what I would do would be like, what? And be so angry at them. Then the
Mm-hmm.
reality is we have to understand what's happening in their world so we can reprimand it appropriately. I'll just say it like that.
Yeah. Yeah. We got to work on our poker face and
Right.
reactions and just understand there is a whole spiritual attack constantly for our children, and to
Yeah.
be in understanding of that and knowing that they're the victim, they're always being attacked, and we are the one of their protection, and we're at war constantly. So let's talk more about that as far as, well, first, do you have any practical protection? Maybe it's an app. I feel like I heard there was like an app you can get, maybe a few that are like protecting. I don't know what the point of is the app, but I just know there's been some education lately in our community and I heard of something, but maybe if you don't know of that, that's totally fine. But are there ways that
Yeah.
practical parental controls, things like that, that we can do Even household rules that we can do with our phones, like, never take the phone in the bedroom, things like
There you go.
that. And then spiritually, how can we be at war, really fighting this battle?
I think as parents, check in with your kids because sometimes we're so busy doing good things, right things. There's a demand on us, but it is imperative that we check in with our kids. And if you think of it like that, I think you can kind of, and I mean really check in with them. How are you doing, buddy? Like, what's going on? How's school? Things that we would normally do, but I think our time is getting robbed because we're also media. Things are demanding our attention. So I would say first things first, put that in check. And definitely, Shannon, you nailed it. If you can say, and it's interesting because, I think about myself. I go, oh, don't put your devices in your bedroom for a number of reasons, for health reasons, and I do it anyway because it's my alarm clock, or I do it anyway because I might miss something, or we're working in different time zones. And so for me, it's a challenge. And at the end of the day, for our children, it could make the difference between them walking out in the middle of the night,
Yeah,
having something happen to them, or them,
absolutely.
and I think it's a discipline. I think we need to let them know the why and the benefits to them. It's not a reprimand. It's not like it has to somehow resonate with them. And each child's different, of course.
Hmm.
There's no one way. That's why that's a little challenging, because getting in a room in a group and having some conversation with other parents, I think also helps find some tools, what's working. Also, your kids sometimes have the headsets because we don't want to hear all that games. Put your headset on. I don't want to hear that. I'm in the other room. I'm not saying yes or no, but I'm just giving some thoughts for parents because you have to decide. It's your child,
Yeah.
but it also could be sending a message to the child that, I don't want to hear what's going on. You can also be like, okay, and you're giving access to something you can't hear.
Mm.
So, maybe you aren't paying attention anyway. Maybe it doesn't matter, but headsets would probably be out of the question. But again, different age,
Yeah, I
obviously.
mean, I make my little guy watch any YouTube videos on the TV, and he likes to watch other people playing games. But I will hear their voices and I'm like, "Can you turn that off? I don't like even the way they're talking, even though they're like chasing so and so in the game. I just don't like the conversation that these people are having. It's nothing bad. It just is like not anything helpful for his ears, not anything encouraging for him to listen to." And I'm like, "No, turn that off. We're not gonna no." So it's so good because he's 5. Like he's just watching it. He's not even probably listening really or like thinking about what they're saying. He's probably watching the actual movements of the game and
Mhm.
being entertained by that. But I know it's going in his ears. It's like, and so I have to be on guard. And I think it's a big thing. Like no headsets. That's yeah.
There's some different books out on Amazon, and I think in your notes, can I
Yeah.
send some of those? Can we put those up later?
Yeah.
Or so there's some good books on Amazon that can help with, training a child in a cyber world is one of them off the top of my head.
Uh-huh.
There is a few that I would recommend that you could put the controls. Do they always work? Actually, sadly, they don't always work.
Yeah.
So we want to put them on. I will have some on a note sheet for you later that they can look at. And there's several, and they're growing, and more companies are coming out. So one I might add may not be relevant. There might be something better. And then obviously, we can do some research ourselves on what's happening. And in our home, I think equipping our children spiritually for the battle, having them understand. We can grow up in a Christian home, but what's it look like to equip our child for spiritual warfare? Really,
Hmm.
what it that right now we're working on a spiritual warfare manual or devotional with parent and child. I'm working on it. It's not finished, but that would be in one of our toolkits. I'm working on toolkits for parents right now through our organization, but there's a few other organizations out there that already have some of those tools that parents can look into. And I will give you a couple notes, at least to get people going, that's on here.
Yeah.
And always reach out to me, Patrice at theprojectfoundation.org. Shoot me an email. I'm happy to get on the phone and talk to you about it. And, again, I'm someone with a passion and a heartbeat. I don't have all the answers. I do not. But I have resources and people that do, and we don't alone have the answers, but as a company of people, we do. So I preface that because what I would want to get the tools with specific for what you're looking for, not just give you a lot of information.
Yeah, yeah, no, of course. Yeah, we'll have lots of things in the show notes, including things on ways that you can support Haley as her parents are still fighting law and trying to get the pink alert Haley's law passed. So I'll have more information about that in the show notes, as well as the petition that you can sign. There are ways that we can get involved. It's one of those that we can't live in fear and shelter our kids to the max and have them not have any technology, because that actually just doesn't work. But, we have to be proactive and we have to be preventative. And since that is your main goal and your mission is to prevent, what are some more ways that we can prevent?
I think something you said, we can't keep them off social media. This is their life. This is what's our lives. AI, the future. This is the future. So we just have to equip them. And because I believe, like I said, going back to 2019, we didn't really understand the dangers and how to, and now we're catching up and we're a little delayed. At the end of the day, I don't believe that obviously it's a problem, but we can come up with solutions
Yeah.
together. One of my heart's desire is to get community. I feel like this is the most valuable. Obviously, you have in your home and then in your community, whether that's your church community or extended community, whatever that looks, and in your children's schools, youth groups, etc., is having classes, support. That's really what my main focus is, in developing them in communities. So Shannon, you're in Indiana. I'm in San Diego right now. So, we have the beauty of social media and internet that we can
Yeah.
come across. So there's some really powerful things we can do together. And I think it's keeping the community aware of what's going on. It takes a village to
Yeah.
raise. And then again, we want to know who's our villagers because,
Mhm.
sometimes we may think and they're really not. But I do believe there's power in numbers. If we can have like that, even setting up little classes once a month, even getting into schools and just kind of developing that in communities, that's powerful because we are actually an army that are building walls around our children as a community. And it's a support to the parents because things like that happened to Haley's parents is happening a lot, maybe
Yeah.
not unto death in a murder, but in suicide.
Yeah.
Sadly, these particularly with sextortion and there's boys particularly are sending video pictures of themselves for whatever. There's a lot of different stories for lack of time, but thank God some of them have come up and shared their story, but there's some of them that end up committing suicide because they're tormented by the spirit that's actually trying to take them down. So
Mhm.
for me, I'm like, wow, this is a lot, but we're not defeated.
Mhm. We could talk about this for a lot longer because there is a lot of information, but I'd like you to close with, you said you were creating this toolkit, the spiritual warfare for parents to
Mhm.
war for their children. Is there one part of that you can share now, like maybe a scripture of encouragement or just a word of wisdom?
Just off the top of my head is back to Hosea 4:6. My people perish for lack of knowledge. And that would be my starting gate, giving us wisdom and knowledge in the word of God in regards to our children and in tools. So that's what it would look like, practical tools. that's the one that's coming to me. And train up a child in the way they should go, and they will not depart from it. I think it's the inception of when we are, and this is for new moms, people that it starts there. It starts in
Yeah.
your home. Sometimes we don't even know how to begin because
Yeah.
there's so much coming at us. But that would be where I would
Yeah.
start. It's interesting because like, I always think that is the answer. So I really felt the Holy Spirit's like, I need you to put something together. And, I'm doing some research because there's some other valuable resources that are already there. But the toolkit would be so we can really get that out there, because it's not going to just take one organization or one group. It's going to take
Yeah.
all of us to push this out completely.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Like definitely have it repeat itself, and find it all over the place. So that's more on in your face than the evil is in your face.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm going to wrap this up with some actionable steps for the listeners, but at any point, well, I'll finish. I have 7, but if there's one you want to add at the end, please fill in the gaps. But number 1, have the conversation. Make sure there's a dialogue between you and all your children. Talk to them about online safety, age appropriate, but real conversation. Number 2 is check the settings. Look at your parental controls on every device, gaming systems, phones, tablets. Look at the apps that are on there. Look at the just everything that may have come on even overnight. Like if they're deleting it, like that one child, you can actually go and see what has ever been in the cloud. So I would do all the checks. Number 3 is move the tech. If gaming systems or computers are in bedrooms, phones are in bedrooms, move them to common areas and make that be a standing rule in your house. Number 4 is know all the passwords, and you should have access to every account your child has, period. That's it. They're underage. Number 5 is share this episode. Send it to every parent, teacher, coach, youth leader, anyone you know that has children around them, which is probably every adult. And number 6 is support the Project Foundation. Obviously, we're going to have all the information in the show notes, but again, there's lots of organizations out there that are doing this work, but it's going to take a lot of organizations being supported to do this work. So support the Project Foundation. And number 7 is to pray. Pray for protection over your children, all the children. Pray for the victims. Pray for those fighting this evil. Just pray that the Lord will heal. Anything you want to add?
No, I love everything you captured and then some, and I love it. The things that I would just add is know your children's friends, not only their friends, because that's kind of old school. We want to know who they're hanging out with,
Yeah.
and know them because they have devices. So you might
Yeah.
be over here and they might. That's why I say community empowerment is huge. And then the other thing is, we didn't talk about it too much, but overnights. And I'll just leave it at
Sleepovers.
that.
Mhm.
Overnights. There's a million things I could share, because sometimes I'm like, oh, like what? But I hope that this episode actually opens your mind. And please reach out to me personally. I'm happy to answer those questions. And we'll get you some tools in the show notes. I'll get that for Shan. And yes, we need
Yeah.
support. We do need support. And we want to continue the work and not stop the work.
Yeah, that's very good. Okay, well, do you want to close out by just praying
Yes.
over the moms and the kids?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, thank you, Lord Jesus. We just thank you for this time together. And I just ask you to quicken by your Holy Spirit more wisdom, more insight to the moms and parents on this program. I thank you, God, that your spirit prevails over us and over our children. I thank you for this episode, that it would give creative ideas, some things to implement in the homes, and even how to pray, because sometimes we might not know what to pray for. However, you do. So let the Spirit of the Lord move through us, pray through us. And Lord, you love our children more than we do. And we love them a lot. So, Lord, you help us fight this battle, because the battle is yours. We commit it to you. And we thank you for other opportunities to take the charge and protect our children. In Jesus' mighty name.
Amen. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing everything. It's
Thank
been
you.
awesome.
Awesome. Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode today. First off, please go sign the petition for Haley's Law. So this is the pink alert and mandated grooming awareness education for schooling. So go to the show notes. The link is there. You can click on it, sign the petition. This is going to help immensely in creating change. Second, you can support the Project Foundation. The link is also in the show notes, and all the resources that she mentioned are in the show notes today. Please just take action. The one thing you can do after listening to such an intense episode is to take one small action. So signing the petition, checking out the resources in the show notes, and sharing this episode with a friend are all things that will help so much in this awareness. Now may the peace of God be with you. Shalom. Shalom. I pray that blessed you, and it would bless me big if you would share the show with a friend or write a review. It will only take a few minutes, and it's the best way for people to find the show too. I would love to connect over on Instagram at @theshanwright, or you can email me hello@theshanwright.com. And until next time, may the Lord's face shine upon you and give you peace. Shalom.